Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alberto Olivas. I am the Executive Director of the Congressman Ed Pastor Center for Politics and Public Service. And that's the portrait of the gentleman in whose name we do this work right up there on that wall. If you're not familiar, Ed Pastor was the first Latino elected from Arizona to serve in the U.S. Congress and quickly became one of the most powerful and influential members of Congress during his tenure. That's special and magical and important for you to know because he didn't come from money. He didn't come from powerful connections. He came from a rural, small mining community. So his story and the center that we have here for all of you students is really to fulfill his vision of encouraging more and more young people to get involved politically, to get involved beyond just voting, to get involved in community change processes and advocating for the things you care so passionately about. So that's that work what we do here in the center. And this time of year, every 2 years, we're so busy with a lot of voter education work. So we're very excited for today's work because we're in countdown mode. If you're not aware, we have 18 days till the voter registration deadline. That's very little time to make sure all the people you know are registered to vote, that their information is up to date. And 47 days from what will be, I'm sure, one of the most important elections in our lives. And that's more than just who gets elected president. So if you're not paying attention, voters in our state will be asked to decide on 13 really critical proposed laws. And so some of what we do is to try and educate about what that means and how to make those decisions. So thank you for spending some time with us today to learn about all the resources available to you from the community to help you be informed, active voters, and to spread it and pass it on to everyone you know. So thank you so much. We hope you get a lot out of today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Alberto, for that wonderful introduction. So just a bit of housekeeping. While we're doing the town hall, if we can please shut down the exhibits and have nobody visiting the exhibits during the town hall. This is going to be a very, very important discussion, and we need all of your attention up here on our very important, very impactful leaders who have agreed to spend their time with us over this lunch hour. All right, and if you are getting food, please do stay for the conversation. All right, again, my name's Tiffany. I'm the program manager here in the Pastor Center for Politics and Public Service. I am also the campus champion for the Andrew Goodman Foundation ambassadors here at ASU. The Andrew Goodman Foundation was created in memory of Andrew Goodman and the three who were kidnapped and murdered by the Klan during the Freedom Summer of 1964. So what we do here at ASU and what Vote Everywhere ambassadors do all over the country is to continue that legacy of registering voters, to continue that legacy of social advocacy, to ensure that young people are participating in the democratic process, are using their voice, and are able to get things done. So thank you so much. This event is being produced by the Pastor Center, Undergraduate Student Government Downtown. Thank you so much. I'm clapping. And the Andrew Goodman Foundation ambassadors here at ASU. So with that said, I will turn it over to our wonderful panelists. Again, please feel free to get food, but please feel free to not visit the exhibits during the town hall. Thank you so much. I'll pass it over to Anish. Anish is our moderator for this event. Anish is an Andrew Goodman Foundation ambassador here at ASU, doing amazing things as an ambassador and in his life, and we are so honored for you to moderate this conversation today. Thank you, Anish.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I know you all have very busy schedules, so I really appreciate you taking the time out and joining us this afternoon. Before we begin, I'd like to extend a big thanks of gratitude to Ms. Tiffany Thornhill, who is the campus champion. It is truly by her vision and her grace that this all is possible, and without her, what you're seeing right now wouldn't be all together. So thank you, Tiffany. So as you just heard, my name is Anish. Before anything else, I'm a student at ASU. I'm doing my MPP right now here in the Watts College, but I'd like to say more importantly, I'm an Andrew Goodman Foundation ambassador, working with Tiffany and the team here at ASU to help with nonpartisan voter engagement and civic education. So now we're going to go ahead and introduce the panelists. I'll ask each of them one by one to introduce themselves, maybe give a fun fact about you and why you're here and what inspires you to do the work you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Murphy Abear. I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. My fun fact is today I'm actually the Acting Secretary of State, which means, I get to sign stuff sometimes. Um, I'm always happy to help out with anything that the Pasteur Center or the Andrew Goodman Fellows do. The dedication to nonpartisan voter education and registration is a huge, huge, huge keystone of the work that we do at the Secretary of State's office and the work that we do at Clean Elections and at the County Recorder and Elections Department. So it's work that most of us didn't realize was going to become so controversial. But it's really important that the right folks are doing the right work at the right time, and you've got some good ones on this panel today to talk about that work. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Murphy. I'm Scott Jarrett. Secretary. Sorry about that. Acting Secretary. I'm Scott Jarrett. I am the Maricopa County Elections Director. And fun fact about myself, I actually am an ASU alum. Well, I attended the ASU West campus and got my accounting degree. So I think that's appropriate to go into elections work. Although I did not have that vision when I was going to school, I really wanted to be an accountant and learn how to invest and do balance sheets and all of those types of things. But I think the Venn diagram of the skill set that goes along with accounting also then helps me with my job of counting votes. Right, so I'm really thrilled that you all came out here today to learn more about the upcoming elections. We're going to have a lot of topics that we'll cover about how you can also successfully participate in this upcoming election and just the key dates and other information that you'll need to know as we move forward through really what is an election season, right? A lot of people talk about election day, right, which is 47 days away, but we're actually mailing out early ballots to our military and overseas voters. Maricopa County started today. Our deadline to mail out those ballots is on the Saturday, September 21st. So some voters already have their ballots in their hands and can start returning them to us at the county.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shanika Mathis. I'm the Downtown Student Body President. A fun fact about me, I would say, is that I was born in Alaska. My grandmother did a lot of work in Alaska with the local government. I feel like that's probably where my passion and original inspiration stemmed from. As the student body president for ASU Downtown, I think my biggest thing that I want to see is I want every student to feel like they're represented through our Senate, our executive branch, judicial branch. I want everyone to feel represented. I want everyone to feel advocated for, and I want everyone to feel heard. So, thank you.
My name is Avery Zola. I'm the voter education manager for a state agency called Clean Elections. We often work with the Secretary of State's office, Maricopa County Recorder's office, to provide information and voter education to you all. One of the reasons I'm passionate about this line of work, which is civic engagement in elections, is because I care about my community. And I know, like most of us, we belong to different communities, whether it's our ethnic group or where we live or our political parties, but I do care about our community, and that's what motivates me for this work. I would say a fun fact about me is that I'm a comic book nerd, love comic books, and that's one of the reasons why Captain Activate is here today. So if you see the mascot running around, you could take a little selfie with him. But that is it. I'm glad to be here today. I appreciate the Ed Pasteur Center for having us. They're one of my favorite community partners to work with at ASU. And yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Yeah, they always put on a good show, so I'm excited.
Thank you, Avery. Let's give one more round of applause to our organizers and our panelists for taking the time to be here today and giving us their perspective on this topic. All right. So I'm sure you're all eager to get right in, and we don't have much time, so I'm going to jump right into the first question. This is around youth as guardians of democracy. So it's really important that we're discussing this topic, especially when we're in a college campus, because right now, more than ever, the youth could be the change in the election. It can be the change in the paradigms that we're seeing today. So the first question is that youth are frequently viewed as both change makers and a group that has historically been unrepresented in electoral processes. What are some ways we can emphasize the role of young people as both active participants and key guardians of democratic values? So you can feel free to go down the line, take it one at a time, however you may please.
I'll start this one. I say one way what we can do is we can identify young leaders and mentor them. A lot of times, especially when I was young, I had passions and ideas about things that I wanted to do, but I think that having someone that has been through the process, they can really show me the ropes and inform me about how I need to get more information about the election process and things like that. Very important. So I'm going to say mentorship is one of the best ways.
So I'll piggyback off that, but I'd say, and some of it's a little bit selfish for me because I am trying to administer an election, one of our biggest elections that we've run here in Maricopa County in the state of Arizona and in the entire United States, but is to get involved and help support elections. Right, elections are very technical processes, and sometimes, especially for new voters, it can be intimidating. Going into a voting location for the very first time, what type of ID do I need to have? How do I vote my ballot? When do I go up to that precinct-based tabulator, and how do I insert my ballot into that process? So you all, if you come in and work for us in this election process, you get familiar with that, and then you can spread the word to your peers, to your friends, to others. There's a lot of inaccurate information swirling around, not only about elections, but specifically about elections. And the best way to get knowledgeable about that process is to work the polls yourself, right? Or we have so we're going to hire about, in Maricopa County, 4,500 total temporary workers to support us in this election. About 1,000 of those will be at our central counting facility, which is just down the street, less than a mile away from here, and we will have night shifts. So do you want to earn some extra pizza money and also serve democracy? Come down and work at Maricopa County Elections, help us count those ballots, and you'll get an inside look behind the scenes of democracy at work.
I'll go ahead and go. Another thing I would like to add is that as youth, I think it's important that we empower ourselves and empower each other, also educate ourselves and educate each other. I feel like a lot of us may think that the power is in who we vote for, which that is true, but the power is also in us. So remember that, take that in the conversations that you have with your peers, the conversations you have in your classrooms, and activate it starting in your community.
That's such a good answer. I'm going to piggyback off of that and just say accountability, right? As a voter group and as a student body, your power collectively to hold leaders accountable is massive. And you hear the slogans like we're stronger when we work together. People will listen to the squeaky wheel. Like you can do all of that. And youth have, man, y'all have the energy and the attention span to get it done. And sometimes along the way, older leaders sort of forget that. And so I think to the extent that this student body is able to hold leaders accountable in ways that are public and activated is really, really powerful.
Definitely, those are all really great answers. And I think I took the two themes of mentorship and accountability from all those answers, no matter if you're a youth or currently working or have worked before, but getting involved now is crucially important, especially with the upcoming election season. But I know as youth, there's always that thirst for knowledge, that thirst for what can we do? I know we're still in school, but what can we do now? Because we want to do something now. And I've never seen a generation of peers that are more motivated to get involved, who are more willing to do the work outside of the classroom or for not even a paycheck. So that's really, really important because there's that drive and that passion. So I thank you all for that.
Oh yeah, but Scott will pay them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like volunteer work, and it can be difficult work at times, but you do get a paycheck if you come work for Maricopa County Elections.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a great opportunity, so I highly recommend. I've had the opportunity to work at the Secretary of State office at Maricopa County, and I've had partnerships with these two individuals over here before, and I can tell you that there has been true mentorship from every single position I've been in, whether peer or subordinate, and I think that getting involved now is really important. So I think the next question I'm going to go into, I heard something about misinformation. We're going to talk about that. In the current digital environment, young people are involved in both consuming and producing media content. What strategies could help them critically evaluate online information and take an active role in addressing misinformation and disinformation, particularly around elections? So with this topic, right now social media has the power to change. You see politicians scared of what they can do or what they have done just because the idea of social media allows people to get information at a rate like never before. So let's hear what our panelists have to say.
I think I'll start. So right now, inaccurate information about all sorts of different topics and it's difficult to really determine what is that truth. So I will encourage you to seek out those trusted sources, but also be skeptical and critical of those trusted sources. So who are those trusted sources in the election space? We have Madam Acting Secretary here, but the Secretary of State's website. We have the Clean Elections team here. We have your local counties and your local jurisdictions. So in Maricopa County, we produced a Just the Facts website to try to tackle all those rumors and inaccuracies about elections. I just want to highlight one thing. There's actually a quote out there, and it's attributed to Mark Twain, but it's not really his quote. It was generated, I think, even centuries before, but rumors and inaccurate information can go around the world twice before facts can get their boots on in the morning, right? And I've seen that firsthand. So one day back in the summer of 2022, I'm sitting there working in my office down at the Maricopa County Election Center. I'm on the second floor typing away, and all of a sudden I start getting pinged all these social media posts. My communications director is letting me know, and they're saying, oh, look, there's this picture from our tabulation center. And basically, we stream all of our cameras 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So if you don't want to keep your Netflix or Hulu accounts and you just want to watch us work, I can save you some money that way. But people are taking these streams of our election center, right, and we have our server, and it's in a glass room because we really value transparency. We want people to be able to see as we do our work. And they put this piece of paper on the wall, superimposed it, and said Maricopa County's router passwords, right? Well, our tabulation equipment is not connected to the internet. So first I saw that and I thought, well, maybe do we have a piece of paper that's on that wall? So I walked down there. Part of our security measures are there always has to be 2 people that go in that room. So I walked up to the glass, I was looking in. I didn't have someone with me, so I had to go get my tabulation manager. We walked in, there's no piece of paper on that wall, right? And so what we had to do then was I had to hire my IT team, we had to take that image, and we had to send it through this analysis, this pixelization analysis, and we could see that that piece of paper was superimposed on the wall, right? But at that point in time, it's 2 days later, right, that we're out there then combating that, and now everyone thinks our equipment's connected to the internet. So be skeptical and critical of the things that you see. And I'm guilty of it too, right? I see a headline, and especially if it's a headline that I support, I'm like, oh, yep, that's for sure. That absolutely happened, right? But no, read the actual article, because that's the other thing. A lot of times that headline is just trying to have you click on it, right? And then we don't read all the way down to the bottom of the article to get all the valuable information.
I would love to jump in. I think those are really good points. And I actually remember when that picture was circulating, and my colleague, Michael Moore, over here in the corner, who's going to scare you all later very, very, very much, with his AI information presentation. The thing that I keep coming back to over and over and over again is dis, and malinformation has been a part of our election process since our elections started. It has taken different shapes and different forms. The founding fathers used to print and share nasty magazines about each other. It was pretty brutal. Sometimes they attacked each other's wives. It got messy. They were messy folks. But the thing that Scott said that I think is really important is to be skeptical to ask directly and to be skeptical. And the thing that I want to build on that is, the whole reason why our founders started public education and founded the university system in this country was so that we could prepare people to participate in a civic democracy. We wanted to, it wasn't necessarily about job training, right? Like, that's the added benefit. But really what we're trying to do is make sure that folks are prepared to carry on the legacy of our democracy. And in order to do that, you have to know something about the democracy. So we talk a lot about pre-bunking information. So if you are exposed to mis, and malinformation, but you have a baseline understanding of like, oh, that doesn't quite, like, you have a baseline understanding of how the process works and that doesn't quite jive, like, that should be a trigger for you to go and seek out more information. So the short answer is just keep asking questions. Also, I'm just going to throw in, since you did Mark Twain, I'm going to use a quote that my grandmother told me time and time again when I was a kid. Believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. And now because of AI, I don't even know if you can believe half of it. So ask questions.
I would definitely agree with everything that was said by the both of you. I want to emphasize being skeptical in those conversations that we are having in our communities. It's always important to go back and fact check, use your resources, do your own research. I'm sure in all of us who are at this university now, we've been taught many different ways to find reliable resources. Take what you learn and apply it to the things that you're interested in. I feel like that's the best thing that's helped me. So in learning in my classes how to do research, if there's something I'm interested in and I'm trying to find the facts, take those tools and apply them how they fit you. I think that's going to be the most important thing. Educating ourselves is crucial because I'm sure a lot of us get our information from social media or from, articles that have those catchy head tags or whatever. So going back and fact checking everything is just going to be the most important things, especially in this election season. From multiple sources. Sorry.
And I just wanted to add real quick. So I agree with everything that's said up here, and trusted resources are going to be important. So if you have like your IG account is popping and you have a lot of followers or a lot of people on Facebook, friends, use your platform to share trusted resources and try to fight the urge to share a political meme. Because political memes are funny, but now we know that a lot of people take those as serious. So if you, one of the things you can do is go to trusted resources, use all your collegiate research skills to find out factual information and share it on your social media, because a lot of people do not know where to go to get factual information. So what's trusted resources? Mostly government agencies that put out information. You have local newspapers, things like that. You can watch debates to get information straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. So I would say just all of us could be voting ambassadors in our own capacity on social media and just share trusted resources with your followers.
And I just want to reiterate, so right, I work for Maricopa County elections, so I work for the government. And I want to hone back in on, be skeptical of the things that I say, but if you come out and you work and you get familiar with the processes itself, then you can be that influencer, right? Then it's not me, Maricopa County Elections Director, saying, oh no, just trust everything that I'm saying. No, say, I went out there, I worked in the tabulation center, I saw all the different checks and balances that they had throughout, all the different handoffs, the sign-offs of chain of custody as they count those ballots, and then you can be the ones that then can have that platform and then communicate what it was that you saw from your perspective. And that's the other piece that I want to say is, right, you all are so creative. We've got a few of our people just right out of ASU working for us in our communications and our social media platforms, and I will say they'll bring things to me. I think they had a Charlie XCX. I had never even heard of Charlie XCX, except for maybe my daughter had told me she liked her.
I just thought that was a big deal.
Yeah, so a music video that they were playing, right, and had our drivers driving around, and I was like, oh, I'm not comfortable posting that. And so then they took my uncomfortableness and said, okay, but our drivers, as they're going around to each of the voting locations, picking up those ballots, they followed the law. Like, and so they turned it on me and were making fun of me and my hesitation of that. But I think don't let, just because your bosses or your superiors are maybe a little bit skeptical, again, use your creativity to overcome that, because I will be that obstacle, all right, to those folks. But I will allow you, if you can outsmart me in a way, to say, no, this is how you're going to resonate and connect with our new voters, right, our youth that are going to be able to participate in this election.
That, this has popped into my head after something every one of you has said, but Scott, your point really, really drives it home. It's that you can be skeptical without being cynical, and I think that it is really, really, really important when it comes to something as crucial as participating in our democratic processes to remain to not get cynical, right? Like, there's a lot of information out there that's going to make you think that the world is falling down. Well, the world has been falling down since the world stood up. So, you know, it'll calm down. So yeah, I think to Scott's point, the whole idea here is to be questioning and inquisitive and skeptical, but to also remember that you are participating in something that's really, really cool that no other country did. We started this, we perfected it, we're doing it really well. I mean, you know, there were ancient civilizations that had republics and whatever, but we made it cool, let's be honest. So yeah, just like there should be an element of pride in this for you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for those responses. And I know it's only human to have an opinion. It's only human to want to express that opinion and be heard. And I talk about this all the time, but as humans, the number one thing we truly desire is to have those connections. It's to be heard. It's to be happy. And I think that in the light of that, people get lost. People get confused. And when they feel like they're going one way or the other, they start to spread information that makes them happier, makes them want to be heard. So it's only human to have these tendencies, but it's really important for things like elections that can decide the fate of this country for the next 4 years to really be informed about the truth. Because at the end of the day, there may be two sides to something, and there may be truth in both sides. But to understand the truths in both sides is more important than listening to one and ignoring the other. So with that said, I'm going to kind of shift to a little bit of another space. So with the idea of technology, with social media, there's this idea of intergenerational collaboration. Because like you were saying, our founding fathers were sending magazines by paper, by mail.
Like leaflets.
Yeah, leaflets to that. But now we can shoot off a text in 10 seconds and it can reach millions of people, right? So I'm going to have two of you answer this question for the sake of time, and then we'll kind of shift to another area. But my question about intergenerational collaboration and the sustainability around that is, what steps can we take to ensure that these partnerships are sustainable and truly beneficial for both younger and older generations? Because we may be doing the work now, we may be putting in our hearts and souls, but one day we'll never be on this earth, or one day those that came before us will not. And that's just the reality of life. So how can we make that sustainable? How can we make the work being done move forward and continue to grow rather than just dwindle off as people phase out?
Love to hop in on that one. I'm going to refer to my previous answer. I mean, I think the best way to ensure that there is generational collaboration and that the work continues is that we stay hopeful in each other and hopeful in our processes. And I think it becomes, especially the older you get, the easier it becomes to become cynical. Don't let that cynicism make it impossible for you to be inspired. Because if you want to be inspired, there's lots of stuff going on that will inspire you. You just have to look for it.
I would also like to add that I think to support the intergenerational collaboration when it comes to civic engagement and elections, it really takes integrating yourself into your community, especially, I think especially specifically on the downtown campus, we're pretty integrated into the local community. We're very close to our local government. So I think getting connected with the community outside of campus as well, getting connected, whether that's through internships, volunteer opportunities, connecting with those, not only your peers, but those who may be older or younger than you, and having those conversations. This past Sunday, I co-hosted an event with my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and it was a new generation town hall. And there we had kids, we had Girl Scouts, we had young children, we had older adults, and we all engaged in conversations just at tables, connecting, sharing input, sharing information, educating each other and empowering each other. And I think it's important that we continue to share that culture amongst everyone.
Well said. And I got the pleasure to be at that event too. So it was truly beautiful to see how that kind of worked out and the interplay between all of that. So thank you again for hosting that and inviting us there. So I think what's really important now is, well, we've kind of discussed like the youth, we've kind of discussed the generational aspects of it, misinformation, but what do we do in the spaces that we're already in? How can we change who we already are to maybe optimize or change in a better way of how we're actually doing things in the present day? So the idea here is civility in civic spaces. I know a lot of us here are in these spaces, and I guess you're in one right now too. So my question is, in a time of increasing societal division, how can we foster environments where young people feel comfortable sharing diverse political views and engage in respectful dialogue? Additionally, what roles might educational institutions, media, and government play in supporting and promoting such civility? Because before anything else, it's important to put our egos aside, to have that civility, to have that open mind when having these discussions. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll again have two of you kind of take this question.
I'll start this one. I would say, as far as being civil, one of the things that we all should consider is think about ourselves, have some self-awareness. So think about a time when maybe you didn't understand the issue and you were confident that you did understand it until you found out new information that changed your mind. So what I'm saying is that I think that we all should approach political conversations or conversations about important issues. We ought to give the other person grace because that person may not be where you are in your information. Now, of course, it's hard to do that if someone is, talking about your gender, your sexuality, your race, or something like that. But you still want to be civil because if you're sitting there arguing and, the people say that from a distance, when you see two people arguing, they both look like fools, So you want to make sure that you just listen is what it's about. Like a lot of times when I'm confronted with someone that may have like a radical political opinion, I'll just listen to them, but it doesn't mean I don't have to agree with them. I'm just listening. So if you are in front of someone, you're experiencing a rough political conversation, you could just listen. You don't have to make a judgment or tell them that they're wrong. Just say, okay, well, and then you can talk about how you feel about it. And if the situation gets where you're not really having a conversation, then it's okay to just walk away. And I'm gonna say the best way to practice having civil conversations is actually online. Because online, if it gets too crazy, we could just stop typing, right? We can just walk away from our keyboard, from the computer. But I like to tell people to practice having civil conversations online. That's a good way to get started with that.
So I think I want to say two things here. So first, Oz, right, we live in a society of echo chambers, right? We all have our peer groups, whether it's social media and the algorithms and the things that we follow, and then they just give us those same stories over and over again or something very similar. And then you end up starting to think, okay, well, everyone feels the same way. But, right, take a risk, step out of that comfort zone, right? And I'm gonna go back to working elections, right? Again, always a plug for that. But I will say, right, when you're working at elections, you're working at a vote center, you're working at our central counting facility, guess what we don't talk about? We don't talk about politics, right? We talk about the work. And when you remove politics from those discussions, all of a sudden you realize how similar we really are, right? We might have the most partisan Republican sitting right next to the most partisan Democrat, right? And they have their political views and they value those political views, and they should. But right, once they take that away and they start talking about everyday things, they realize that they can have a valuable dialogue about other types of topics, and they really agree. And then some of those people they had never met before, and they worked at that elections department, and they became the best of friends, right? The best friend from a Republican that maybe they, in their echo chambers, they only hang out with other Republicans, and now they value a Democrat. And guess what? Now more and more Democrats come into their sphere of influence, and they start to see, oh, wow, I thought all Democrats believe this one thing. They don't. They believe just as much about most of those moderate centrist ideas. And so that's the other value. So challenge yourself to take risks, but step out of those echo chambers and then meet people halfway and try to understand why they have that certain perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, working across the aisle, and that's what Congressman Pastor did during his time as a congressman. He always stepped over the aisle, always tried to make those connections, and he made those connections to be able to make policy and change in the right direction. And I really value the work that's being done here at ASU through the center, but also as students, we can get involved by communicating with one another, hearing each other across the aisle, because I know the generational divide here, we are willing to listen to each other when maybe the generation above us or above that has more ideas and therefore not more so willing to do those things. So I think that that communication, that dialogue, and the inspiration from Congressman Pastor is really important in today's day and age. So we're kind of getting to the end of our conversation here. I'm going to open it up to the audience, or I'm going to take one question. Yep. So I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to have one of you answer them. Or you can all three answer them. So just kind of quickly going down the line. So the first question I have here is, what encouraged you to vote?
I will start with this one. I'm encouraged to vote. Like I said, I started being engaged and inspired with my grandma when I still lived in Alaska. But I think realizing that our power that we have is a privilege, and being able to vote and voice our concerns and advocate on behalf of ourselves and behalf of our community is really a privilege that I think everyone should take into account and act on. I'm sure there's things that within our communities that we may not agree with, or there's things that we may want to see change, and the change starts with us. And like I said, there's just so much power in the young voices. We have more power than I think a lot of us realize. So I think it's important to act on that privilege and use your power to vote, exercise your right.
Feel free to answer the question too, no pressure.
Yeah, I'd say the reason I first voted, and so I came from a divorced set of parents, right? And they then are on the opposite sides of the political spectrum, right? And so I would hear like them argue for one or advocate for one point of view, and then I'd hear my other parent advocate for the other, and so I started really, and then I always would then play the devil's advocate, right? And then I'd land somewhere in the middle, and then I just so much appreciated that opportunity that to be able to fill out a ballot and research the actual issues when you're completing that ballot or filling it out. And the other thing I'd say is it is really easy to vote, especially in Arizona. We're one of the most voter-friendly states. I'd say the only thing that we don't have that I think that some of the other states have that make it a little bit easier is same-day voter registration. But if you want to vote at your couch or your dorm and get a ballot in the mail, you can do that here, right? You can then take that early ballot and drop it off at any one of our drop boxes. We will have a voting location at AE England right across the street from here, open for 27 days before Election Day. So that's going to be October 9th. So October 7th, as long as you're registered to vote, you can walk across the street, so don't delay. Go ahead and vote early or vote on your own schedule, but it's going to be easy for you to be able to cast that ballot as well.
I would also like to add that there's voting centers on every ASU campus. So even if you're not a downtown student, or even if you may live closer to one of the other campuses, there will be a voting center near you.
My answer is not as polished. I was mad. I voted because I was mad. I voted because I didn't like some of the folks on the ticket when I first started voting. So I voted for someone who is mad at those folks too. Yeah, that, and it was a secret. I think it's really cool that our system allows us to keep our votes private so we can be honest and express our true political views in a manner that keeps us protected.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would say I was taught to vote because my parents taught me that being a person of color, especially in Arizona, We're not a large population. So I would say it's even more important that if you're from a marginalized group, whatever group that is, that you let your voice be heard, because how else they're going to hear your concerns or the issues that are important to you. So I basically got that from my parents, and I started voting. What I'm going to say is that I was voting, but I didn't understand really what I was doing as far as like with the difference between polling locations and vote centers and all that stuff. So what I'll say is that when you graduate, you're going to be in a space where it's like you think you know everything because you got all this education, but you really don't know what you know until you actually put it to use. So I graduated with a political science degree. I had voted most of my adult life, and I thought that I would know everything about elections, but I didn't know what I didn't know until I actually volunteered in a campaign and started speaking to voters directly. Some voters that disagreed with me, some voters that agreed with me. So I would just say that I started to vote by watching my parents, but you all, I would encourage you to get active and get involved, because that will motivate you to vote, because you will understand the processes, you'll understand elections and what's at stake.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then we have one more, we have two questions, but I'm going to combine them into one, and I'll have two of you answer just because of timing purposes. But before that, I just wanted to share a thought of mine. So I'm going to answer the question too, why I vote or why I chose to vote. So last election, the day to vote was actually on my birthday. So I turned 18 just hours before I went to vote. So that was a really good blessing for me. And it was during COVID too, so that was a weird time in life. So I wanted to vote personally. This is even before I started my civic journey, because my grandparents came to this country as immigrants. They came here, they tried their best, they had a few dollars in their pocket, but they had no way to navigate the system. They had no way to express their voices, especially not knowing English. And they had to oblige to what was already being done. And they were typically on the oppressive side of things, where they were given harder tasks than other people. There was racism involved. So that's why I choose to vote and get involved, to speak up for those people who continue to observe those things happening to them, but for the sake of my grandparents who came to this country and never had a voice. So I'm here on their behalf too. So, and at the end of the day, we're all human, red, blue, black, white. We are all human, and we're all here for each other, and this wouldn't be possible without one another. And I think that really plays into the next question here, and it's really about how can we help be a voice for those who can't vote, and how can students outside of the state participate in Arizona's elections, and how do they request an absentee ballot? So those two things combined, I think you're probably the point of contact for that one, but if one of you also wants to speak to how can we be a voice for those who can't vote, that's also, please go ahead and take that one too.
So I'll just provide the technical. How do you sign up to get an absentee? And we actually call those early ballots here in Arizona. So when you register to vote, this is the easiest way. You can sign up for something called the active early voting list. And that means, and all you have to do is, whether it's through Service Arizona, so that's where if you're updating your driver's license, you can go to that website, or you can go to our website at Maricopa County, it says request.maricopa.vote, right, and sign up for an early ballot. But if you sign up and you register for that active early voting list, that means every single election, we're going to mail you a ballot. You do not even need to send us anything. You're going to get that automatically we're going to mail it out 27 days before the election. Actually, just this morning, I got my text saying my ballot's being prepared. Well, I sort of knew that because I work at the elections department, but anyone that didn't would have got that text. So you can sign up for that and be alerted when we're going to mail that ballot to you. So that's the easiest way, but you don't have to go online and do it, right? Because as you mentioned, and as I mentioned, we're going to have early voting locations open at every single ASU campus, but also your counterparts at those community colleges. Every community college, we're going to have a vote center open for 2 weeks before Election Day. So those are ways that people can participate early, and you don't even have to sign up for that through the mail.
Thank you. And I'll touch on the other part of the question. So it is vital to include international students or any of the other groups who are not able to exercise their right to vote in all of the conversations that we're having regarding civic engagement and voter awareness. Even though they may not be able to exercise that right, it's still important that they're included in the conversations because their perspectives are important. It's important to be open-minded and inclusive. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is just including them in the conversations, being open-minded, being inclusive, including them in the culture. Also a way for international students to be a little bit more included in that culture at the university level is encourage them to participate in our student government elections. That's a way for them to kind of understand the processes, possibly, even though they may not be able to participate in local or national elections. It's still a learning opportunity. There's so many things that align with local and national elections that we do at the university level as well. And also, when you vote for your student government representatives, they all have their own inspirations or aspirations for your community on campus. So for those international students, if you want to see a change made on your campus, it's important to participate in your student government elections as well.
Well said, well said. And I really appreciate you kind of touching on the campus part, because, you know, we're all students here, or most of us are, and that we really want to get involved and, you know, keep pushing that word out. So unfortunately, now comes the idea of final thoughts. So I like when my professors do these things where it's like, if there's one thing you're going to take away from me or take away from this class, you better remember this, and then you'll be set for life. You can walk out tomorrow if you understand that. So I want to go down the line and kind of have each one of you give that one kind of takeaway that you hope that everyone here remembers from what you have to say, or what they're going to take from this conversation. So just quickly, 1 or 2 sentences. Go if you can go down the line and give that kind of that moment.
I shouldn't sat up front, sit in the back of the class. That's my takeaway note, just kidding. I have to just come back to don't get cynical, right? Like stay open to new ideas and be willing to ask questions and be skeptical, but not cynical.
So this is tangentially related to something we've been talking about, but there's no perfect person and no perfect process in this entire world. So, and you did mention it, give people grace. So I think that's, whether it's voting, whether it's elections, whether it's just everything, decisions and interactions that you have in your life daily, you're never gonna encounter a perfect person. So if you just look at those people and treat them how you would want, what is that, the golden rule? Just look at those people and recognize everyone's going to make mistakes, probably multiple mistakes every single day. So just to give those people grace.
My one thing would be to remember that there's power in your voice and there's power in your education. Remember that there's privileges that you have being here at this university. There's privileges that you have being in this country, being able to exercise your right to vote. I think it's important to act on that.
And I would say, I hear Alberto say this all the time, but voting is the last step in civic engagement. So make sure you get involved, activate your political power, vote, and vote often. That's what I would say.
But only once during each election.
So I have one question for the audience, right? If we're all summing things up, how many of y'all are registered to vote? Yeah. That's awesome. That makes me so happy. If you're not registered to vote, there's some folks right over here who can help you. And right here, and right here, and right here.
Awesome.
You get to register.
Yeah, the more people registered, the better. And I'd like to leave with one thing. So for me personally, I was once told, don't let those with pockets of gold rule with an iron fist, meaning don't let those who are already in charge control your life. And I think if I had to say one thing, or if I had learned one thing, it's never to be afraid to speak up and speak out for what you believe and what you value and what you want to change. So with that being said, one huge round of applause to our to our panelists and to the organizers. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over back to Tiffany and Alberto.
All right, what a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. I'm just standing in front of you. I didn't get to hear all of it because I was running around, but okay. But what I did hear was amazing. So thank you so much for all of your contributions to the conversation, for your contributions to the event, for your contributions to the world. That is the reason why we chose you to be a part of this panel, is because we appreciate your leadership and everything that you do to ensure that our democratic process is safe, engaging, and preserved. So thank you so much for all you do. Let's let Alberto give a few final thoughts as well. And panelists and all of my Andrew Goodman Foundation ambassadors who are in the room, if we can get a photo over here before we disperse. And the last voice you're going to hear is Alberto, Executive Director in the Pasteur Center. And I also wanted to thank all of you, every single one of you up there, everyone who can hear my voice. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This event is going to be going on until 3 o'clock. So like I said at the beginning of this, when we shut down all of the vendor stations, they are going to open up after you hear Alberto's voice. So you'll be able to engage with them, register to vote. There's popsicles available if you visit the vendor tables as well. So let me let Alberto close us out.
So quick question, show of hands. How many of you will be voting in Arizona for the first time this year? Oh boy. I want to warn you, get ready. It's a lot. It's a lot. If you voted in other states and now you're voting in Arizona, get ready, because we have extremely long ballots compared to other states. But I don't say that to discourage you. So I've been doing voter education work for over 20 years. And one of the things we've learned from the research that makes a difference between people that vote and people that don't vote is how much they understand what's on the ballot and how it will affect them. So among all the things voters will be deciding, I mentioned we have 13 ballot measures. How many of you work in a job where you get tips, or know somebody that works in a job where you get tips? There's a ballot measure that will affect what you take home. There's a ballot measure on reproductive rights, constitutional right to an abortion. Those are just 2 of the 13 big deal questions. So don't get overwhelmed when you see your ballot. Pick 1 or 2 issues that you care a lot about, and talk it up with your friends, your neighbors, your family members, because that really makes a difference whether people show up or don't show up. So thank you for educating and informing yourselves. Enjoy and visit all of our exhibitors, and have a wonderful election, everybody. All right.